Hello, I'm JaeYoung, a master student of AAA Excel Lab. Today, I'll be introducing Sketch to NM, transferring Sketch storyboards into 3D animation, published in SIGGRAPH 2025. This paper tackles a fascinating challenge at the intersection of animation and AI. How to automatically transform 2D storyboard sketches into 3D character animations. Storyboards are essential in animation production. They help artists visualize ideas and plan the motion before the actual animation process begins. However, converting 2D sketches from these storyboards into 3D character motions is still a manual and time-consuming process. It requires years of professional experience and often involves repetitive trial and error to achieve the right motion. This gap between 2D creative expression and 3D animation production is what motivated this research. Let's move on to the motivation behind this work. Storyboards are fundamental to animation, yet they remain limited to 2D visual expression. They can describe actions and timing, but they don't actually produce motion. Previous research on sketch-based animation mainly focused on motion retrieval, searching for similar motions in a database based on sketch or text input. These methods depend heavily on existing data and therefore cannot generate new or unseen actions. Another key challenge is the large domain gap between 2D sketches and 3D motion data. A sketch is static and visual, while motion data is dynamic and high-dimensional. Directly mapping one to the other is extremely difficult. In addition, current generative models struggle to control multiple conditions simultaneously, such as key poses, trajectories, and action semantics within a single motion generation process. Ultimately, there is a clear need for an automated system that can quickly and intuitively transform an artist's creative intention from 2D sketches into coherent and realistic 3D motion. That is exactly the goal of Sketch to Anim. The proposed system, Sketch to Anim, takes storyboard sketches as input and generates 3D motion clips as output. Each input consists of 3 elements: a 2D key pose, a 2D trajectory, and an action word, such as jump or kick. The system then produces corresponding 3D motion clips that reflect these inputs. Sketch Anim is built upon 2 main modules: the multi-conditional motion generator and the 2D 3D neural mapper. The neural mapper aligns the 2D sketches and 3D motion representations in a shared embedding space, while the motion generator uses these embeddings to synthesize realistic 3D motion through a diffusion-based generation process. Let's first look at the multi-conditional motion generator, which is the core of the motion synthesis process. This module is built on a diffusion-based motion generator. It uses 3 types of conditions: the 3D key pose, joint trajectory, and action word to guide the generation process. Within this model, a component called trajectory control net manages the global dynamic movements, ensuring that the motion follows the intended trajectory defined by the 2D sketch. In addition to the trajectory control net, there is a second component called the key pose adapter. The key pose adapter refines local static poses at specific time steps, making sure that key body configurations in the generated motion accurately match the 2D sketch. It combines key pose embeddings with action embeddings and injects these features into the generator's residual layers. This residual injection helps minimize inference between global trajectory control and local key pose refinement, resulting in smooth yet accurate motion synthesis. The model is trained using a combination of three objective functions. The first objective is the reconstruction loss, which helps the diffusion model accurately recover the original motion by denoising 3D motion data during training. The second is the trajectory matching loss, which ensures that the generated motion follows the intended motion path defined by the 2D trajectory sketch. And the third is the key pose alignment loss, which makes sure that generated body poses remains consistent with the key poses provided in the storyboard. Together, these three objectives enable the model to produce realistic and coherent 3D motions that are well aligned with the 2D storyboard input. Next, the 2D 3D neural mapper addresses the domain gap between 2D and 3D data. The mapper aligns 2D sketches and 3D motion representations in a shared embedding space. It is trained using both contrastive and reconstruction losses, encouraging the network to bring paired 2D 3D samples closer in the embedding space while maintaining structural integrity. During training, the model learns from paired 2D 3D data, for example, 3D motions and their corresponding 2D projections. However, at inference time, the system accepts only 2D storyboard sketches as input. The mapper then projects these 2D inputs into the shared 3D embedding space, allowing the generator to synthesize 3D motions conditioned on purely 2D information. The mapping process is trained and supervised with three key objectives. The first one is the embedding alignment loss, which encourages the network to correctly align the 2D sketches and 3D motion features within the same latent space. The second is the 2D reconstruction loss, which ensures that the model can faithfully reconstruct motion details from noisy or incomplete sketchy inputs. And the third is the contrastive running loss, which helps the model distinguish correct 2D 3D pairs from mismatched ones, improving the overall cross-domain correspondence. Together, these three training objectives enable the mapper to robustly connect 2D sketches with their corresponding 3D motion representations. For evaluation, the authors used the human ML3D dataset, which contains about 14,000 human motion sequences paired with around 45,000 text annotations. This dataset provides a large and diverse set of human motions that serve as a foundation for training and evaluation. Since no prior work directly addressed sketch-to-motion generation, the authors designed three custom baselines for comparison. The first is motion retrieval, built on text-to-motion retrieval model, extended to accept 2D key pose and trajectory as inputs. The second is lift and control, based on motion BERT. It first lifts 2D sketches to 3D poses using a lifting network, then applies motion control. The third baseline is direct 2D2 motion, where the diffusion model is trained directly on 2D inputs instead of 3D motion conditions. These baselines help assess the unique contribution of sketch to Anom in running cross-domain alignment and multi-conditional generation. Here we can see the correlative results. Sketched Anom produce 3D motions that closely follow the shape and intent of the input sketches while maintaining natural human movement. Compared to the baselines, the generated motions exhibit smoother trajectories, more accurate pose alignment, and better overall realism. These results demonstrate that combining diffusion-based control with the shared embedding space leads to consistent and visually convincing motion generation. To conclude, Sketched Anom introduces the first unified framework that transfers 2D storyboard sketches directly into 3D animations. It features a 2D-3D shared embedding mechanism that allows the system to infer realistic 3D motion from purely 2D inputs. Overall, this work proposes a new paradigm for sketch-based 3D motion generation, bridging the creative process of the artist with AI-driven motion synthesis. However, there are still some limitations. The current system does not explicitly model physical constraints or object interactions, which can lead to physically impossible results. Additionally, the paper acknowledges that the model has not yet been tested on a wide range of user-created sketches, so further validation and generalization will be important in future work. And nevertheless, Sketched Anom marks a significant step forward in intuitive, artist-friendly 3D animation generation. Thank you for listening.